Good morning. We're rather running out of things to say before we start these sessions. I usually ask, have you got any questions, Phil? And he said, not really. But I have something in mind that I thought I might speak about today. I speak so rather light-heartedly about finding one's security, one's everything really, in this invisible presence. But I wouldn't want too many of those who are watching or listening to think it's that easy to reach this blessed state. You can see how old I am now. And I've just started editing some letters that I wrote, a long series of letters actually, that I wrote over 35 years ago to a woman with whom I was very much in love. And I'd also had some very powerful insights of a spiritual union between us. And I was really in agony between my desire for her as a man and my recognition of this spiritual union that didn't actually require a worldly connection. Well, in a way, it's not dissimilar to what we're confronting now with this coronavirus. Here am I saying that it's just a passing phenomenon, ha-ha. But to most people in this world, it's a very, very real threat, cause for fear indeed. And how can one pretend otherwise? How can we just say, oh well, in spirit everything's okay? Well, we have to, there's a very big step between just saying that in theory and 100% realizing it in practice. That's what takes the time in spiritual work, and I don't know any shortcuts. We just have to experience the fear and the pain of losing our hope in worldly solutions. And when the whole world, the whole brains and economic power of the world is being directed towards a man-made solution of this coronavirus, telling us, encouraging us to put our faith in vaccines and ventilators and the health services that care for us. Well, it's no easy thing to tear oneself away from that, even if you wanted to trust in God. You see, the powers of this world, which often come in the guise of benevolence, and I don't dismiss the good intentions of those behind them, they're really contrary to the spiritual freedom from these things, which becomes more evident gradually over a long, long period as we practice in the face of all this apparent opposition, to put our trust in the unseen and in the unknown rather than the apparently known. I wonder if that makes sense to you. I hope it does. As I read these letters, you see, none of my hopes of having a fulfilled relationship with this woman were realized. And I was just tearing my heart out because it seemed so contrary to all that my sort of deeper instincts were crying out for. How can the world not in some way conform with apparent spiritual reality? Yes, that puts it well. But it doesn't, you see. We've only got to consider the fact of death. Now, let's fool ourselves that we can find vaccines and things so we don't die of coronavirus. But as I keep saying, my dears, you'll die of something else tomorrow. In where we live, there's a charity shop for cancer relief. And in the shop window, they've got a big notice saying, "We'll beat cancer." And I find that really quite horrific when I sense the aggression of man towards this disease, which is blamed as being the bane of all evils. Well, to some people, obviously, it is. And this sort of mission, let's beat cancer, pouring money into research and all that, well, to a lot of people, that's a very worthwhile task. But let me just ask you to consider the aggression, the human aggression with which we embark upon that task. Is it not rather a case of the pot calling the kettle black? Is one aggression solved by another? Very interesting. Many of the words of Jesus we prefer not to know. One of the key sayings of Jesus is, "Resist not evil." Why not? Well, because the more we rise up in anger against apparent evil, the more we increase it, don't we? The bigger it gets. What we give attention to in that way, the bigger it gets. Now look, just as I'm talking to you, my eye is caught. There's a frog, just behind the camera, a frog crawling across the stones. A dear little frog. There's a bit of swampy ground the other side of the road, and he's coming out for his big adventure. And it's just like us, isn't it? Venturing out of our home in the womb, coming out to crawl across the stony trackways of this world, under the peril that an eagle, a hawk might pick him up, or a tractor may come along, or somebody may just walk on him. He's just crouching there with his little breath going pant, 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 just waiting and watching. Perhaps he hears my voice, wondering what to do, whether to come forward or run back. Well, I'm harnessed up to this microphone, otherwise I'd pick him up and put him in the ditch behind me. Well, let's keep our eye on him and see what he does. Well, he's safe in the ditch behind us, so all's well that ends well. It reminds me the way Shakespeare described this human journey of ours, or enduring the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, which life throws at us one way or another throughout our mortal journey. Well, if we can just keep something of a memory alive of the fact that the goal of this life is not death, it's immortality. and that God is with us, always in the here and now, which we can very simply, anybody can simply remind ourselves of this by simply feet on the ground, listening and looking and coming into the present, which we don't need to have a lot of spiritual experience to do that. Just the mere glimpse of it is sufficient to just boost one's confidence a bit. That the things that happen in this life are not the end of the story. There is hope. There really is hope of salvation. So that's really my message of today, my dears, that however awful life is, we've no real reason to lose hope of better things to come. If not in this world, then in the world to come. Hope, 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 hope. God bless you, my dears. Until tomorrow.